So welcome everyone to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light with myself, Soma ARah, and this evening with Brad Olsen, who needs no introduction. And hello, Brad.
Hey, Soma ARah. Thanks for no introduction. No introduction necessary. I like that term.
Yep. Well, everyone knows who you are.
Do they? I don't know. I feel normal. I like what Jordan Maxwell said. He was a bit of a mentor of mine. He said, I'm just an ordinary guy who just looks into and speaks about and writes about extraordinary things. And I kind of feel the same way. I just feel like a normal guy, but I'm into a lot of this stuff, and I'm hoping to see human ascension and to do my part, whatever that is, however I'm doing it, to just keep doing it. That was the message I got yesterday. On my birthday, I woke up right before dawn and got to this hill that overlooks my town, and there's a big letter on the hillside. And I just moved here not even a year ago, and so I'm kind of wondering, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And it came back a resounding yes. And what I miss is my community, my friends, cool people like you that I could go to a dinner party and hang out with. And so I was kind of coming here cold turkey and getting an outpouring of interest in this place. And I'm only 90 minutes away from Lake Tahoe, so I love to go up there for skiing. And I do have a lot of friends up there, and they're coming down to see me here too. But anyways, my message yesterday was keep on doing what you're doing, fight the good fight, and it's the only way. So I guess that's a pretty resounding yes, that I meant to be here, and I got a 10-acre ranch now, and I'm in the process of developing it. And of course, what I want to do is eventually have conferences and small festivals and a tiny house village, and develop out the land. And I've already got the small barn, a few animal sheds, corrals, everything ready to go for animals. I just need to hook up the water system from my well instead of my neighbor's, and then it's good to go. So I'm ready to look at the possibilities of having animals here, doing some agriculture. But I'm just currently a one-man show, so it's kind of hard to do it all, plus my busy work and travel conference schedule. And that's where the intentional community comes in, if it goes that way. But there's currently nowhere to stay apart from if you bring your own mobile home. I have one in a big warehouse that I work out of. So that's where I'm at.
I was just taking a few notes there. One of the things that the Pleiadians kept telling me a while back was about community and how important that is in these times of ascension that we're in, and to come together and to create communities. And I think that is essential. It's so important. So, and I know there's a lot of people that want to do it, and there's fewer people that are actually doing it, which is what you're doing. So I take my hat off to you, Brad.
Thank you.
That's not a small thing, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of heart frequency and a higher vibration. I don't even like using those words because it's I think the higher vibration and the higher frequency are the norm, and we've been disillusioned and misled into believing anything else, and corrupted.
Yeah,
corrupted.
Oh, it has been, but I think the better word is inverted. Everything that's good has been inverted to serve this dark agenda. For example, the word Illuminati. The illuminated ones, what a great thing. I wouldn't mind joining that and becoming enlightened myself. But of course, it has been inverted, and now it's a tool of darkness. So we have to see through that in our journey here on this prison planet Earth, which isn't hard because we're not taught what we should be learning from the time we're little children. Really, from cradle to grave, we've been sold this false matrix. And now the Great Awakening is people starting to see through that and making those insightful ways of inseeding into what's the real source of reality instead of falling for all the tricks they play on us. So seeing through that on an individual basis is really what the Great Awakening is all about, because we certainly have the numbers. And the revolution is consciousness. The revolution of us winning nonviolently is just to wake up as many people as possible. But that's a personal journey that needs to be facilitated by each and every one of us. But I think ever since the scamdemic, it's becoming pretty apparent to just about everybody that something ain't right here, that we have been sold down the river, a pack of lies just about every step of the way with this last few years. And so this is unraveling right before our very eyes, and whether people are ready for it or not, it's coming. And that's why I had to get out of California and stake a claim out here in northwestern Nevada, because it's away from the population centers and those cities that have allowed this kind of anarchy to reign. And I was out in California in Santa Cruz, just right outside of the epicenter of the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989. It was right when I moved out here from Illinois, and I had never experienced anything like that. It was just incredible force of nature to feel an entire building shaking and stuff flying off the walls, and then running out of the house because you're not sure if it's going to cave in, and seeing the telephone wires bouncing back and forth for a couple minutes. And I had just moved out there from Illinois just a few months before Loma Prieta. And then the rollers, I've never seen anything like it, rolling waves over the asphalt and the ground. And I was so fascinated. I just laid on the ground to feel it. These ripples from it. So, but my point here is I was there in a localized disaster, and I couldn't believe how quickly everything ran out in a matter of sometimes even minutes. Everybody rushed to their convenience store, supermarkets got eventually looted, and stuff was just gone. So, and then that also includes going to the ATM. That also includes getting gas in your car because everything turned off. Yeah. So people really thought through what could happen if everything gets turned off. And in California, we're always taught preparedness for situations like this because it's earthquake country. It has these disasters every so often. So I guess maybe I was more attuned to where this is going than a lot of other people, but I see it coming. We got some dark months and maybe even years ahead of us. And so I think the future is to those who are being prepared for what might be coming. Of course, I always hope for the best, but I prepare for the worst. And I think that's just the situation we find ourselves in right now at this very strange time.
And isn't that the smart thing to do? I do have some questions for you, Brad, because but so that earthquake that you were in, was it 1998? You said, was that a natural one or was
89.
that? Sorry,
that was a big one.
Yeah,
it was 1989. It was October. I can't remember the day, middle of the month, October. It was a really hot day. California gets an Indian summer, especially along the coast. The weather gets really, really nice in the fall. And it was one of those hot beach days. And it was in the early evening, I think 5-ish p.m. And it was memorialized on the clock tower in Santa Cruz because when the power stopped, it just held on that time, not for a few days or weeks or months, but years. That time was memorialized. So when it hit, my first irrational thought was King Kong's on the roof shaking the house because I'd never seen anything like that. Then quickly I thought, well, I'm about to go out and play basketball with my friend John. He's probably throwing the ball against the wall. And then all of a sudden, my girlfriend at the time and John and her girlfriend come running out and they're like, earthquake! And they all grew up in California, so they knew it and experienced it before. My first one, we all ran outside, and that's when it was very apparent a major disaster had struck. There was actually a World Series baseball game taking place between the two Bay Area baseball teams, and right at that moment, 5:06 p.m., it just shut down the whole World Series baseball game. I mean, it was that serious. It was felt for 100 miles. It affected the area, but felt even farther afield. So it was a big one, and a 7.2 earthquake, or 7.1. And Loma Prieta is just one of the mountains right outside of Santa Cruz. So we were super close to the epicenter. Of course, it's always more severe when you're near where it triggers.
So I always love talking to you about Atlantis and Antarctica, because you've got so much knowledge on those. And do you see a connection between, I mean, would you say there's a connection between Atlantis and Antarctica? And will you talk a bit about Antarctica as well? I know that we were kind of joking before. I made a joke about sending a drone into Antarctica because there's a no-fly zone, but yeah. So will you go into that a little bit, Brad, or a lot? You know, whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it up, because I've just done a whole bunch of research on it for an upcoming TV show on Forbidden Knowledge, Billy Carson's company. And then I'm also I wrote the script for an 8-episode series called Secrets of Antarctica. And one of the things they wanted me to include, so I did a bunch of research on it, is the possibility, could Atlantis be in Antarctica? And it's really interesting that right now, even in the last couple months, Google Earth has started to open up and started to reveal things that before they had kept covered. And I've seen many instances where they cover up stuff and they don't even really do a very good job. They'll just put a white overlay and you can see the perfect rectangle shape.
Yeah.
So it's not even they're using the brush tool or trying to Photoshop it to look like there's nothing there. They're just like, you're not looking and we don't care if you know. But there has been a trend lately to start opening things up. And as it relates to Atlantis being in Antarctica, Dr. Michael Sala sent me a Google coordinates that I went to, and it happens to be in the New Schwabenland area where the Germans made their claim in the 1930s. And the Google Earth image shows a plateau, what appears to be perfect rectangular buildings, runway strips, other perfectly symmetrical type structures that kind of appear to be foundational stone, not necessarily modern buildings at all, but remnants of a lost civilization. So more investigation needs to be made on this. I'm going to keep checking back on it and see if they give us a higher resolution of it. But what it was initially was enough to say, well, this is something that is a relic, is a remnant of an intelligently created civilization, because Mother Nature does not create those perfect rectangles, triangles, runway strips, like the Nazca lines, these kind of very geometrical shapes. But humans are fascinated with it, right? And we incorporate it into our building designs. So that we included it in the series. That has really good traction because anybody can use the GPS coordinates and go and look at this. And it's not too far away from where the Germans made their claims in this area of New Schwabenland, but more specifically right in the center of New Schwabenland is what's known as the Schumacher Hills, named after the Schumacher Ponds, named after the pilot Schumacher, who during the expedition of claiming New Schwabenland landed a seaplane into these lakes in Antarctica that never freeze. And he stayed behind the plane while the exploratory crew went inland for several days, and I do believe to lay claim to a derelict base that was given to them by the reptilians. They just basically said, here's something, here's the coordinates, go get it. They did, and they started base 211 at that location in the Schumacher Hills. Meanwhile, the pilot Schumacher, he stayed behind and did water samples in the ponds, and there are 140 of them but the main one where he landed, if you like to swim in lakes or even the ocean, you'll notice the deeper you swim, the colder it gets. That's called a thermocline. But Schumacher was pulling out samples that the deeper he went, the warmer the water got. So it's clearly geothermically heated lakes around there. And I was reading in a book called The Black Sun by Henry, what's his name? But he was saying that he had documents of the Germans who lived there who also like to be up on the surface. Who wouldn't? You'd get kind of bored and claustrophobic and miss the surface. But this area of New Schwabenland, specifically the Schumacher Hills around the ponds, never freezes. It never gets permanent snowfall. So it has soil there. And the German soldiers were akin to going up on the surface and growing their own crops and sunbathing. And I would imagine dipping into some of the warm thermal ponds on the surface. So it's kind of a Shangri-La in Antarctica, very rare. It's even called an oasis within an otherwise totally frozen continent. So I think those are some of our best signs that there was Atlantis on Antarctica, and also, of course, the crash disks. And there is one, the best case example, I think we've talked about this before, is the Conan base. It's still a research base out on the polar plateau inside the claims of Nazi Germany in the late 1930s. I can't imagine that them surveying and naming the mountain ranges could have missed this giant anomaly sticking out of the ice. And probably one of the reasons why they laid claim to this area, because their scientists were already very familiar with backward engineering craft. We're doing it. They had a down craft in the Black Forest in 1933. And even more importantly was Mussolini, who was their partner in the Axis during World War II. But they recovered a nearly intact UFO in the Lombardy region. And first crack at it, well, Italian scientists, but they were nearly as well trained and versed as German scientists who had the next crack at it. But I found it very interesting that David Grush, in his early testimony, this guy who's just come out and verifiably working in these secret programs, made the claim that Mussolini had in his possession a nearly intact craft from the Lombardy region. And then the next group to get a hold of it, according to David Grush, were our scientists, many of which were working with the paperclip Nazis to backward engineer this stuff. So of course they knew that this craft was under the ice in Antarctica, and this could also be a remnant of Antarctica or another alien species. And I love it when data points come together. And the Farsight Institute are a team of remote viewers. So with the target, as they call it, perhaps GPS coordinates, they're able to remote view these sites and the Conan site. And I showed these images of an excavation in 2013 in my Secrets of Antarctica series. Something clearly was being pulled out of there and they were working on this site. Yep. Google happened to let that one up. You can still go see it in the Wayback Machine. Just use the coordinates for the Conan base and look around, you'll find it.
Sorry, Brad, go on.
Well, just wanted to say the remote viewers went down and took a look at this craft. And they said it was built for giants.
Yeah.
Way, way, way bigger than us, 20, 30, 40 feet tall. The ceilings were very massive, and the craft itself, although derelict and not, no one was in there, it was certainly purposefully built of a higher intelligence for very large creatures.
Well, one of the things I was going to say was, I love talking to, I love like, you know, I'm a channel for the Pleiadians, right? But one of the things I love about doing that and getting information from them is that it always seems to be that years down the line, mostly years down the line, there is truth coming out about what I've previously channeled like years ago. So years ago, I was doing a channeling and they were talking about, and even recently, sometimes they repeat themselves years later, you know, so with different information. So one of the things they said was that there is a connection between Atlantis and Antarctica, and that Atlantis was in different places, but like I guess you could say different bases or different areas. But one of the places was definitely Antarctica. And there are, I mean, we've spoken about this before, and there is a craft there, a large craft that was landed, and that also a lot will be exposed in our lifetime about Antarctica and the area, some of the areas that are there. I think there's a vast secrets hidden there. And there's definitely a connection to Atlantis. One of the other things that's coming to mind that they told me that sounds crazy to normal people is that, and this was years ago, I was in Edinburgh at the time, but one of the things they said is that there would be a time in my lifetime when there would be what would appear to be two suns in the sky. And that is now, that there's now evidence coming out about that, and that's in my book. I forget when they told me, but I dated everything, so I think the date's in my book. But yeah, it's just fascinating to watch stuff that even I would think that's crazy, like there's going to be two suns in the sky. That's like, how is that possible? And then for years later, for it to start happening, it's just beautiful, like really fucking beautiful to see it, and for other people to come forward, not even being aware of the information or that I've shared or the downloads or me at all, and to come out of the ethers and share this information. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so, really amazing.
Yeah, and are you planning, because I know that you've a real connection to Antarctica and probably Atlantis, because you've a connection to Antarctica and that you love it and the information. Are you planning to go? I know it's cost a fortune, but are you planning to go back at some point to Antarctica?
Well, I would if somebody else was picking up the bill, a film crew or something like that. And I have talked to some production companies, but they've priced it out, and it is a small fortune to go down there with the crew. So you better have a really good working series and a production company behind you. But I certainly would. Yeah, I'm a cold weather guy, being mostly of Scandinavian, Northern European genes. I like it cold. I look forward to ski season. I'm just paying for my season pass right now, and looking forward every winter to get into the snow and ice. I just have a disposition for that. I can handle it. I like the cold, but I like the hot too. I'm going to go swimming today. It's a nice hot day in my town, and go to the community pool and cool off in the hot part of the day. And then it keeps me nice and cool well into the evening. It's kind of good. While I'm developing my ranch, I don't have an air-conditioned house yet, so that's coming.
Yes, so
but we'll find ways to beat the heat. What's that?
Tell me about your ranch.
So exactly 1 year ago, I've been wanting to buy a place for many years, mainly in Tahoe, because I want to be close to skiing. But I love it up there, and it's beautiful, and summers are great too. However, prices shot through the roof during the whole scamdemic, because everybody from the Bay Area could then work remotely, and they were calling Tahoe the workers' paradise, work from home. So all these techies went in and just bought up all the real estate, and just when there's no inventory, the prices go through the roof. So I'm like, damn, just missed that one. Just like in 08 was really the last time to be able to buy in the Bay Area, when they had another downturn. Actually, the following year, 09, was really the year, and in Tahoe. So I just needed to go, because I'm seeing the walls closing in on the cities of California. And if they haven't learned a lesson from living through earthquakes and the Antifa riots, which, by the way, great cities like San Francisco and many others up and down the whole West Coast are still scarred from all those Antifa riots, the looting. Now you have a huge exodus of commercial space, fleeing the city, closing up shops, closing up the whole big Westfield Mall, which had over 100 stores. They're just leaving because they don't want to deal with this, because the police won't enforce shoplifting. The thieves know they can go in and steal up to $1,000, and it's just a misdemeanor, and you're usually right out the door. So it's having a ripple effect, and it's crippling these cities, that and all the vacant office space. So a lot of tech people are getting laid off now. It's going to change the real estate market, but it's so damn inflated anyways. So what got me out here? I was casting a wider net on the area around Tahoe, and I was very interested in the story of the Native American prophet named Wovoka. Do we have time? Should I tell you about this?
We have time. Yeah, please do.
So Wovoka was born a Paiute Indian. That's the primary tribe. And I live in the basin of what was once a very extinct, but there are still remnants of a very large freshwater lake that expanded over the whole of northwestern Nevada for hundreds of miles, and channels and islands. And the biggest remnant right now is Pyramid Lake. Interestingly, all around the high level rim where there are caves, there are also found mummified giants. So I'm kind of out here in this mythical land to begin with. And then when I found out about the Native American prophet Wovoka, it really fascinated me. So I drove through this area and always kind of had it bookmarked. Well, that could be a good place to go if it looks like there's time to bug out of the cities in California. And so this property came available a year ago. I moved on it quick. I had within $1,000 of my life savings to make a cash purchase. So I don't have a bank to deal with or mortgage payments, but it's going to take some work. And as I said, I haven't put a house in yet, but I put the well in and the cement pad. Now the pump room comes next. And then I think by October, we're going to put in the first tiny house. And I want to do a whole village out here. And because I have this great big warehouse right now, and on the other side of an irrigation canal is all the farming stuff, it's got the infrastructure ready to go. And so what I'd like is someday to have a community here, or be able to bring them in. And so, yeah, just finalized the purchase almost 1 year ago. And ever since the first of the year, been living in an RV inside the warehouse and doing my business here. But also speaking at a lot of conferences and traveling quite a bit. But I like it, and it's growing on me. I'm starting to meet people and find my way around here, and I like the area. It's good and safe, and it has everything that I was looking for. And we've talked about this on a previous interview, but it bears worth repeating that what you want to look for is, of course, flowing water. Absolutely necessary, whether you're able to have rights to a creek, stream, irrigation canal, have the rights, don't do it illegally, but drill a well, another good way. And right where I'm at, I'm right on top of the big aquifer, and my neighbors tell me you can just drink right out of the hose, but I will have the water tested when it's flowing. But that's the big one. But for me, it was also ag land, agricultural land that's under cultivation. I'm surrounded on three sides by it. The other side is wildland. So I kind of got the best of both worlds, and then very close access to this little town I'm in. And it's agriculture and ranching town. It also had copper mines, and so it's called the Copper Hills and cattle country. And just noticed yesterday they're gone, but last month I saw over 200 head of cattle not far away. So there's big operations. So you got basically food, water, and I also found out there's a beekeeping community. I might start some bees and get that going too. So basically all the food possibilities for growing, ranching, and cultivating.
That is fantastic. Really fantastic. And I'm delighted for you. What an achievement, like really.
Well, and in many ways, I think it was just divinely inspired, because I couldn't believe how easy and how I had, with my Federal Reserve notes in a bank, just little blips on a screen, right? Not even touching my other investment, but just that enough money to make a payment, and then boom, I'm collecting the deed to a piece of property, my first ever. So it was kind of cool. And now when I have these digital blips on a screen again, I just use them to build out the infrastructure on the ranch. And soon I will have flowing water, and soon one of hopefully many tiny homes in a village in an intentional community that then people would like to come and start doing events. And that would be pretty cool too.
Yeah. And how many homes would you like to have on your land? How many like tiny homes?
So 10 acres is the property. About 8.5 of those are usable, and it is already zoned rural residential. And it's 1 acre and 2 acre parcels within the full 10 acres. So legally already I can put in close to a dozen houses, because each house can have a grandmother unit, second dwelling, a tiny house basically.
Yeah. Sign me up.
But there is legislation to allow this kind of tiny home community in my county here in Nevada. So I think by next year, when that legislation goes through, I might be one of the pilot projects. Really now it's just finding the funding and getting things. I don't like to owe people money, especially these corrupt banks. So I just have to do it as I can make it.
Sign me up, Brad.
Well, looking for angel sponsors, you can put in your own tiny house and be able to visit anytime you want. Putting that out there. In fact, an old friend of mine just wished me well on my birthday yesterday, and she's like, I'm really serious about investing in your ranch. I said, well, what would you want to do? I said, we need to put in a house. Okay, let's do a house. So maybe this angel investor is going to work out. We'll see. Things just move in the way, the flow of the cosmos, and everything in life happens sometimes. So not too worried about it. I'm just here as the master manifester, putting things together and keeping it real in this dense third dimensional reality that some of us aren't too used to, coming from places like Pleiades or other high-tech cultures, to get thrust into this very dualistic, false matrix prison planet of Earth. Can be very confusing for a lot of star seeds. I know it. I've seen it. They come to the conferences they speak at and express their frustration. But what are we going to do? We're in these bodies. We got this period of time, so we best make the best we can of it.
Yeah, sign me and my partner up. Okay, so
you're in the UK though. How do I sign you up?
Well, I'm not. Well, I am planning to. I'm planning to move to America in like it's been on the cards for a long time, and I knew it was coming. Right. I knew, like I was told it was coming in when COVID kicked off, and I didn't know how it would manifest. I just knew it was coming on the cards for me. So then I moved to Ireland, and anyway, to cut a long story short, I was offered a position in America. And it's been kind of delayed for a while. So once I've got the contract, I'll be relocating to probably Miami with my partner. So that is on the cards. I just don't know when. So,
okay.
Yeah, so what else did I want to ask you? Yeah, I wanted to mention that we did a couple of interviews. I think, well, we did two with Sasha Stone, and I think both of those were pulled within 3 or 4 minutes from YouTube. They didn't go live. They were pulled straight away because of more gallons. I'm trying to not say the word, but because of that, they were pulled. So no one saw them. What else did I want to mention? Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to mention, but I'll leave that till the end. So I know that you've got lots of interviews, and was wondering if we could keep this short and maybe do a couple of other interviews when you have time to go into things a bit more in depth.
Sure. Well, we're talking now. What else did you want to bring up?
Well, there's loads. There's so much I want to dive deep with you. Events. What events do you have coming up? Are you, I know Laura's in the UK at the moment, but are you planning to be in the UK?
No, I wish I was. I know Laura's here now too. I'm waiting to get invited to a conference. Anybody might want to have me out. Love to come. I've been to the UK a few times though. Really like it a lot.
Do you?
Oh yeah, of course. Who doesn't? Yeah. But I'm a little bit worried in the same way that I'm worried about Canada, that you guys are, I think, a little bit more vulnerable to this form of fascism that's creeping in. You get your 15-minute city in Oxford. I know they're trying it out in different places here. It looks like New York City right now is getting wired up for it. Seen a couple of videos. In Manhattan.
Yeah. Can you talk?
Yeah, and I remember they were talking about this in San Francisco when I lived there over 5 years ago. And they said that they wanted to restrict the downtown to, they would monitor every car in and out, and you'd have to pay a certain fee. So these are sort of the early signs of creating these 15-minute city. But as I understand, Oxford, UK right now is the prototype 15-minute cities, and it's being enforced. So that's when it starts getting scary. Then we're kind of in Orwell's worst nightmare scenarios. They're enforcing this. And when they start to enforce things, the other example would be if they ever made that mandatory, we're in big trouble when they start moving in on people who don't want this kind of authoritarian government. And I see it happening in Canada faster than the US, and also you guys in the UK, and of course Australia. I mean, the Five Eyes countries, who'd have thunk, what we always believed were the bastion of freedom and free speech, and we have our rights, that in Western Europe too would be the worst form of this kind of new fascism that's taken over in the cities in these countries, because they have the people in positions of government. And most of them came out of the World Economic Forum, the mother weffers, like Justin Castro. Pretty good evidence that his mother had an affair with Fidel Castro. And this guy, Justin, offed his real brother, who was meant to be the successor to their dad, Pierre Trudeau, and using that family name after the brother died in an avalanche that kind of has the fingerprints of the prime minister all over it. So what I'm saying is, how do you fight against this deep state government that has basically captured the operation of all these Western countries? And this is what the real struggle is, to understand that they did it, that they're the ones responsible. These mother weffers are the ones that are trying to push this technocratic new world order over all of us. Oh, and they get to be the ones who call the shots, but we're their serfs, right? So it's the worst form of fascism you could ever imagine. George Orwell would be rolling over in his grave. I love the meme of him saying, I wrote 1984 as a warning to you people, not as a bloody operations manual. And they're taking page out of Orwell's book and enforcing this stuff. So this is when it starts to get real. And another reason why I felt the need to get out of these population centers while there still was time.
And that is the solution. You know, that's what the Pleiadians have said all along. That's how we get out of it, by moving out of it physically, by creating communities, by creating centers, by growing our own food, having our own water supply, and just stepping out of it. Like it's such an illusion, and yet it is attractive. You know, there is an attraction there to move to big cities like New York or Dublin or London, or there has been in the past, more so. You know, when you're coming from, like, because I'm in Ireland at the moment, but when you're coming from like a rural town in Ireland, there is an attraction, much more in the past than there is now. But so that's something kind of deep in our psyche, where there's something better outside of ourselves, or out over there's something better. When in actual fact, the way our grannies lived and our granddads, that's what we're moving back to. You know, having our own food, our own water, our own community, raising our children outside of the school system. The school system is as corrupt as they come, and that's where it starts. The kids are programmed at school through, I mean, programming not just through TV with television programs, but at school, where they are taught complete nonsense, complete BS about science, about history, about maths, about, like, they're not taught how to cook, how to, well, some schools are, but you know, they're not taught about health, about food, about their own bodies, about relationships, about, you know, community, about astrology, about science, about history, about math. Like, then they're just taught complete BS. And that's something that really gets to me, because I thank God I didn't have any secondary education. I stayed home and I meditated, you know, which is really unusual. You know, kids don't do that. And I connected to the Pleiadians through being traumatized and sexual abuse as a child. And I left my body and connected to the Pleiadians, or they connected to me. So I'm so thankful that I didn't have that secondary education. And for a long time, I felt really stupid for a long time, and really guilty and inadequate that I didn't have that whole, you know, certificates and secondary education. But I did go back to college and studied holistic therapies, which covered a lot of things like reflexology and aromatherapy and alternative methods, and kind of, I really got back into it then. But yeah, so I was kind of saved in a way by the Pleiadians. And one of the things they said to me was that, because they put a wall of energy up in front of the school gates so that I couldn't go in, because I tried a few times, at least 3 or 4 times, to go in, and they put this wall of energy where I just couldn't move and move forward. And they said to me, we didn't let you enter because you would have been lost to us. So I now see, looking back on it, I see that was a tremendous benefit for me, not to have that whole school system. Like, I just didn't have it, you know. So but sometimes people say stuff and I'm totally unaware of it, because I didn't have that secondary education. I had the primary school, which was actually great. Very, very really enjoyed that. And anyway.
Yeah, well, we learn from our life. I often say that's one good thing about getting older, is you do become a bit wiser. So use that wisdom, and life's examples and even the failures can be sometimes the best lesson for future success.
Yeah, because I don't think there are any failures. You know, there isn't. There's not even, like, I was hugely traumatized as a child, and I've kind of got sick of myself talking about it over the years. As I've got older, I've like with the healing, it doesn't, so what, you know. But I see all of it as a great blessing as a child, because it really cracked me open spiritually, where I wouldn't be on the path I am now without the trauma. It was exactly what I needed. And yeah. So you must be kept pretty busy with developing the ranch. But what do you have coming up?
Oh yeah, I got two conferences next month in September. First is in Las Vegas, where I'm giving my Antarctica the latest updates presentation, but also moderating two panels, and I think I'm on one or two other panels. So it's called the Alien Event. If people want to find out my conference schedule, go to bradolsen.com. There's a link right there on the landing page. And then a week later, Laura's going to be at both of these events. She and I are going to drive up through Nevada, probably go by Area 51 and check out Rachel, Nevada, maybe do a sky watch one night. Come to my ranch for a night or two, and then to Mount Shasta the following weekend for another great Shasta event. And then I have the Orlando, Florida GSIC conference third weekend of October. And I also event produced the How Weird Street Fair, and that's coming up in downtown San Francisco on October 14th. So I got a busy fall schedule coming up. So I don't always have so much time to work around the ranch, but I'm getting stuff done eventually. It's a long haul process, but that's okay. I still need to make a living and raise the funds to do those improvements. So got the dual life thing going on now.
Yeah. And it's wonderful when things just click into place like they have with your ranch, because it's always signifies to me anyway, when it happens to me, that, and other people, that things just come together. It's boom, 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 because it's meant to be. You know, everything kind of lines up, and it always happens. It seems to happen always really quickly.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention as well is that the Pleiadians have recently said over the last couple of years that there will be alien landings, but there will be a fake one, or more than one, but there will be a fake one. There will also be a real one, and we're going to have to really use our discernment to realize which is which. And personally, I think the ones that will be widely shared on the mainstream media, I think those will be the fake ones, because anything that is shared on mainstream media, the vast majority of it is complete nonsense. So what is your take on that, Brad?
Well, I just did a big long interview yesterday on the fake alien invasion on paranormal terrestrial radio, but syndicated around the country. And we filled 2 hours talking about it. Yeah, it's what they said they were going to do to Werner von Braun. Knew about it in the 1970s when he told his assistant, saying it would be the last card they would play to initiate the full New World Order. But right now we're being subject to a strategy of tension where they're breaking down systems. So we're in a very desperate situation. And also by destabilizing around the world, putting people in a position where they'll more readily accept this kind of World Economic Forum, dystopian, fascist, get a chip in your skin, use our digital currency, and we'll cut you off at any time if we don't like what you said. This is where they're going with this. This is what they want to do. And so the best way that their think tank could figure out how to do this, and I'm very glad you brought up the Pleiadian message about it being next year, because there was a CIA whistleblower way back in the 1980s was saying that
I don't think they said
2024 was the year they're going to do Bluebeam.
Sorry, Brad,
So
say that again.
So a CIA whistleblower video, old video, he predicted 2024 would be the year of Project Bluebeam. He seemed to know it by date, and it seems like everything is getting building up to being a next year event. So did your Pleiadians have anything to say on timing, just to know that it would be fake? And
do you know, I said they didn't just then, but actually thinking about it, I think they did say a date, which will be in the recordings, because sometimes they tell me stuff and I actually forget it.
Yeah.
And then they have to remind me a couple of times, sometimes a couple of times. But I think they actually did say, I know that earlier in this year, they said that the 4th month and the 6th month would be really important. And they didn't say what it would be. And then in my monthly free channeling, they said, I think it was the last one or the one before, they said that it must have been in the 6th month, because they were talking about the 6th month, where they said that the recent alien landing, where there was a video shared, the Pleiadians said in that channeling, in the free monthly channeling, that was real. I don't know if you saw it, where there was a guy in America, I think, quite a young guy, who was quite he came across as being really genuine and quite innocent, and he had this experience in his garden where there was an alien, and it was filmed, and it looked quite scared, but they said that was genuine, and I don't think that's been shared on mainstream media. But I think they did say another date. I think they did say next year. I'm not sure. I'll have to listen back to and if anyone listening wants to check the dates out with that, if you go into my YouTube channel and go to the last 2 free sessions, the last 2 free sessions of my free monthly channeling group, and listen to that and see if there is a date. Because I do forget half the stuff they tell me.
Yeah, and this is what I like to hear, is when there are data points that confirm outside of the current one. So that would be interesting if we're being warned, and I'm hearing it now from several different sources. In fact, I was just in Miami last Sunday for the first annual Conscious Awards by Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. And in the green room, Stephen Greer came in, and I got a chance to talk to him a little bit. And he was very concerned. He's hearing from his military insiders that they know it's coming and that there will be a resistance towards it. Now, we've seen how absolutely full on this New World Order agenda can be, and how they're just putting this stuff on all of us, from the lockdowns to everything we've had to endure. Now finding out it was all a ruse. and so I would not put it past them to try this big move. But the good news here is, well, people are waking up and they're going to see right through it, but that there is a white hat resistance. And this is what Greer pointed out, as well as many other sources are saying, that that it will be foiled. So what I'm thinking could be the most hilarious result of all this is they try to do Project Bluebeam, hopefully with no collateral damage, because there could be people that die, like 9/11 or something else that they've done. But that it's this holographic projection, has all these glitches, and they shoot down the satellites as they're projecting, and then people would just see, yes, that they tried to do it, but 2, that it failed miserably, and then that would be the final downfall of this globalist cabal. And good riddance. Bye-bye. You suck. Hit the road, Jack. You're in the way. And all these World Economic Forum mother weffers, they just need to be meted justice. There has to be a system of justice that deals with people like this in the world, because we're clearing out a planet of psychopaths who are always attracted to power, and they're very hard to depose. You can't get rid of them too easily. They do go down kicking, screaming, and even fighting to the death if they feel that is their fate. So we're going up against a very formidable enemy that has been in control of this planet for many, many centuries. These are generational families, these bloodline families, and they just train their own to take up where the others leave off. And they're just, their aphrodisia is power, and they want to control it. And they will, rather than lose the game, they'll just throw the board up in the air akin to a game of chess, just a petulant child. All right, then if I have to go down, I'm taking the world with me. That is their mentality. So they will pull out all the dirty tricks, and we just have to be ready for it. We have to be able to see it for what it is, and don't fall for any alien agenda nonsense. It might be a spectacular show, and they even have voice to skull technology that could be employed and make it really intense.
I know. I've had some. I've had quite well. I've been really targeted a lot, and I've had some experience with that myself. But I think that I've come to kind of accept the targeting, that the for me, if I'm going to be doing this work, there's no I've come to kind of expect the targeting, although it has dramatically decreased over the last year, for reasons I'm not going to go into. But like, I've had the voice to skull technology,
You've experienced it. Wow, interesting. Yeah. What was it like? Is it being schizophrenic? I'm hearing voices in my head. They're commanding me.
Well, the thing is, I've always had voices in my head because I grew up with spirit. I grew up with mediumship. I was talking to my granddad physically and all kinds of stuff. So I grew up talking to my guides and having voices, or spirit in my head, which is very real. But sure, didn't schizophrenia come into existence when the technology came into existence? So schizophrenia is, I've always had the belief that, or used to have the belief about schizophrenia coming from a shamanic point of view, that you have mediums who hear positive spirit, and then you have schizophrenics who hear negative spirit. Well, is that really spirit, or is it negative technology, or technology used in a negative way to target people who have mediumship ability? What is really going on? Because schizophrenia began when the technology began. Schizophrenia is not in our history, not going centuries back. It's I've come to believe or understand that the schizophrenia, I've always believed that that's not even true. I haven't always believed, but I came to understand that schizophrenia was negative spirit talking to people. I've now gone beyond that, and now believe that is negative technology. That is voice to skull technology, where you have negative spirit talking to you. And then that goes also, the aspect there connected to that is a lot of the shootings in America. That to me is voice to skull technology, or some type of technology that overtakes that person and makes them commit hideous crimes that they wouldn't normally do. And it's very interesting that you don't find that in other countries. That kind of is exclusive to America with the mass shootings, or the shootings of mass, like the whole school shootings. I don't see that happening in any other country.
No. But notice how they kind of dried up, and very, very few happened during Trump's time. Makes you kind of believe that there you go. Those are false flags with collateral damage. And so hopefully this all comes to an end too, because they have just been so absolutely insidious that we didn't know what we were up against. The CIA got so out of control. It's been verified by several people that were in the very first meeting with Ronald Reagan, meeting he was a new president. He was meeting the chief from the CIA named William Colby. So this would be in early 1983, right when he takes office. And William Colby comes in, witnessed by many, gotten verification from different sources on the internet. He said, from the CIA's perspective, we will know our disinformation campaign is successful when everything the American people believe is false. So that's the perspective we've been getting hit at for several decades. We know about Project Operation Mockingbird, which was to put CIA plants, create the stories in all the mainstream media. And so anything coming out of the mainstream is really the globalist megaphone. If you really want to know what the mother weffers want you to think, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. To me, it's unlistenable. Sometimes I'll be driving, and I used to listen to NPR. I thought it was a fair and well-balanced program. Now it's unlistenable. It is so blatantly propagandized to this agenda that they're pushing down our throats. I can't listen to it. I try to I want to understand where the opposition is getting their where they're going with all this, and it's just wow, how divergent from anything we used to trust in the mainstream media. That's why it's all garbage now. It literally is one of those institutions that has to be burned to the ground, only to resuscitate a whole new way of telling the truth in the media. And of course, this Mockingbird inspired, and really all of the big heads of networks, as well as the people doing the reporting, they're in on it. They say, well, Anderson Cooper, CNN, he was the son of Vanderbilt, and there are pictures of him in John Podesta having the children hanging from in a swimming pool, which is exactly the swimming pool of the Vanderbilts. So that might be a young Anderson Cooper gagged and bound and hanging to be abused by these people. So they're in this sick club. This is what I'm saying about Prison Planet, is we have been run by this parasitic bloodline family clan, but they have bought and paid for everybody of influence and power. So we're up against a behemoth. This is no small task to take these mother effers down, because they have all the money too. So when you have this fake fiat currency, and you control the printing press, how do you compete with that?
And they are, what's the word you use? Mother
weffers. WEF, the World Economic Forum. I got that from Cliff High. He calls them the mother weffers. I like that term, because that's what they are. They're parasites.
I might start using that if it's okay.
Go ahead. It's from Cliff High anyway, so we're all just borrowing here.
Yeah. It's one of the first things that the Pleiadians said to me way back in the day when I first began to consciously channel them was that every system on Earth is run by negative ET energy. Every system on Earth. To me, that was one of the most profound things. And it took me a good 2, 3, 4, 5 years to kind of integrate that. And I'd always known it subconsciously. I mean, it resonated with me. It felt right. It felt accurate. It felt like it just clicked into place. And then it was around that same time that I understood why I'd been kept out of the school system, thank God. Because up until that point, I'd always felt stupid and guilty and less than, because I didn't have the secondary education. But that was one of the first things they said, that every system on Earth, including the school system, which always gets to me, because these are our children, for God's sake, they're our children. But every system on Earth is run by negative ET energy at the top level. So when you really come to understand that, not just read it or hear it, but actually understand it in your center, in your core of being, in your like on the soul level, when you come to understand that changes everything. I mean, to really get that, then you can see, well, actually every system is false, and we've been lied to on a mass scale, and that every system does need to fall and crumble and burn away and be torn from its reptilian being in order for us to create a new Earth. And ascension is...
I'm glad you bring that up with reptilians and the malevolent ETs. it was like Bill Cooper said in his most famous speech in the UFO Congress 1989, you put the aliens in the middle of this stuff and you get all the answers. And so the humans, such as the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, they're really the colonels and the captains in this. The real generals are these malevolent ETs, most namely the Draco reptilians, have been here on this planet, and they reproduce naturally, unlike the Greys, which are all test tube created. So they lose that sense of empathy. But it turns out that these reptilians, well, gee, wouldn't you know, they have a taste for adolescent humans before they get too many pollutants in their body. Hence the whole adrenochrome thing too. So this goes real deep. It goes really dark, but the real overlords, and isn't it interesting, even the image of the devil living inside the earth in a hell-like landscape, kind of reptilian looking. And my conclusion in the book Future Esoteric, I show all the different comparisons between what we've been told this version of hell is and these malevolent ETs living in underground bases doing all this to us. Another great quote from Bill Cooper from that same speech was, he said, it was learned and it is then now happening that these malevolent ET groups have been using secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion for centuries to control us. And think about all the superstition in it that humans have had. And only now are we figuring this out and seeing that these institutions is what they've been using to enslave us.
But didn't they, I mean, I see, yes, I believe you're absolutely right. But I also feel or think that they created them in the first place. They created the Illuminati and the CAWL and all the negative agendas. They're at the top of it. They have to be. Like, where else? I mean, that some of the stuff they do is just inhumane. It's
absolutely.
inhuman.
Oh, despicably inhumane. And well, they like to get us to do it to ourselves if they can convince people to do so. And many of these people in power have to do that. Yeah. Remember that banker from Holland? His name was Ronald Bernard. I think you can still see his original interview. Very telling, because he was an elite banker and he was moving up the chain. And he said the moment when he had to back out was when they wanted to fly him overseas to do a child sacrifice. And he absolutely backed out.
Was that the guy?
Ronald Bernard from the UK, from Holland, the Netherlands. Yeah. Ronald Bernard. And he was absolutely sickened by it. And of course, when he said no, he lost his position, lost his power, lost his money. They were out to crush him. He still won't name names because it would probably be his death knell if he did. But it was enough for him to say, this is how they do it. And with Epstein Island, it was all blackmail. It was all honeypots to put people in power positions in a compromised, photographed, videoed with underage minors, boys, sex parties, whatever, to compromise them. Then you got them. So this is another thing we're going to have to grapple with as Americans, is how many people that we thought were really good people and trustworthy are anything but, that they were compromised. And look, for anybody who might be watching this, who is, you just got to come out and say, I made a mistake. Yeah, I took a flight to Epstein Island. I was intoxicated. They created these videos with an underage girl. I don't even remember the situation, but whatever it is, you just have to come out with it and just say, compromised. And that might be the only way that these people can save their own necks.
I think you're right.
Because there is a white hat movement and there have been arrests being made, and there are thousands of sealed indictments that are being opened now in secret, and these arrests are happening. I went to the government website a few years ago when there was first talk of these sealed indictments going in front of a grand jury, and then are just sealed, meaning they're waiting to be opened for the right time. That time is now. The indictments are being unsealed against the deep state. but they're taking out the mid-levels, right? That's kind of the easy pickings. The real heavy hitters, like the colonels and the captains, well, they're in fortified underground bases and they move around so much. So they're hard to catch, but they're eventually going to get caught and justice will be meted, because that is, call it God's will, call it living in a planetary system that absolutely needs justice for those wrongdoers, no matter if they were able to take control of the highest forms of power on this planet. If there is justice in this world, if we are to move on to a better age, it has to go down this way. It absolutely has to. If it doesn't, we're in the worst form of fascism on this planet. You'll never want to be reborn here again. And this is the crossing point right now, is that moment where either humanity is going to shake the yoke of this oppression, or we're going to a very dark place for future generations, even in our lifetimes.
Yeah. I love what you just said, because one of the things that's coming to mind as you're talking is the connection between Atlantis, Antarctica, and Ascension. And they did what I'll just, like, I don't really like talking too much in interviews, but one of the things they did share with me was about Atlantis and how it's parallel to now, and the Atlantis reversal, as the Pleiadians call it, because during the downfall of Atlantis, negative ET energy came in and overthrew Atlantis, where we were highly evolved beings, much more than we are now. And this is kind of the second run, or during this time, it's kind of they call it the Atlantis reversal, because now the same thing is happening again. And this time we get to evolve. This time we get to ascend, because we don't make the mistakes that we did before, when we were coerced or manipulated or made wrong choices. I mean, I've had a lifetime in Atlantis where I made the wrong choice, and I went.
Maybe that's why you're here now.
That's why I'm here now. Yeah, I came back to get things right. I came back to get things right, and I think that's also to do with the 144,000 of us came back, and a lot of us remember each other. Like, I remember a friend of mine, I remember her on a ship, and she's well known. You're a friend of, I'm not going to name names, but anyway, when I'm getting visions, sometimes I see her on ship, and we are there, like I'm with her on ship, and we're coming to Earth, and there's thousands of us, like there's 144,000 of us, and we're coming and we're landing, and we're getting our shit together and preparing, and then we land here, and like, this is it. This is, like you say, a prison planet, and we're here to ascend and get things right, because things went wrong in Atlantis. I mean, shit happened, and reptilian energy overthrew Atlantis, and we were hoodwinked into thinking that was the way to go, and it wasn't. We made mistakes, and we fucked up, basically, and we de-evolved, and now we're in the parallel situation where we get to evolve, we get to ascend, we get to correct the mistakes that we made. Although we were hoodwinked and led down the wrong path, now we get to ascend. So they cannot stop ascension. They did previously in Atlantis. They devolved us, but this time we get to correct the mistakes we made, because this is not limited to Earth. This affects the whole universe, as it did previously, and the universe and other planets and star systems is assisting us and wants us to evolve and ascend, because it not only affects Earth, it affects everything within the universe. I mean, we are not alone. We have never been alone. We don't even come from here. we've been lied to on such a mass scale. It is unbelievable. That's why so many people think we're crackpots. You know, talking
Not
about
anymore.
suns in the sky and aliens and like voice to skull technology and all of the esoteric stuff which you write about in your books.
Yeah.
So that, like, no wonder people think we're crazy.
Well, but I don't think so much anymore. As we said at the beginning of the show, the awakening is an individual process, and people need to see it for themselves. They need to feel it in their core. They have to just understand that it's been a wholesale hoodwinking from cradle to grave, and we just need to question every institution that has any role in our lives and look at things uncritically, but more importantly, to feel that this is what's coming through. Listen to your higher self. Your higher self. And how many times have we regretted higher self said do something, oh, I'll get to it or forget about it. And then it happens. You're like, why didn't I just do it? So people, their intuition is starting to really move people into their own great awakening. And then collectively, this is how we win this, because we have to do this in a nonviolent way. We can't resort to the same measures that they did, or we're as bad as they are, right? So we have to do it in a way where we just don't accept these new systems that they're trying to push down our throats. That's why I'm really worried about Project Bluebeam, because they can get us into a very desperate situation where they know people will be clamoring for any kind of solution. Please save us from the alien invasion. And then that's when they implement their plan. So we have to be vigilant through everything you're going to throw at us, because they're still coming, and this is not nearly over. This is nothing short of the liberation of planet Earth. And think about it in those terms. We've been born at a time where we can affect change. We're in our adult bodies now, so we can defend ourselves, unlike children, which are very vulnerable. And we have the ability to manifest. And this is so vitally important. This goes out to all the light workers who know this. We can affect change on this planet. And look, you don't need to have your own YouTube channel. You don't have to be a book author. You don't have to speak at conferences. You just have to visualize it in your own mind and be a part of this as someone who grasps this incredible moment in history. And just by having a perception of what we're going through and your role, just be a good person. That's all you got to do. That's the only requirement here, is to be in service to all and a good human being all around. Then things are going to work out. And a lot of this will come to you through your intuition. You don't even need someone like me to tell you, because you're just going to know at your core essence when you're being lied to and what the better course of action is going to be. And then I think we're going to do okay with this. And we're going to get through this incredible time in history.
Yeah, and I love what you just said. I mean, that's why we're here. You know, we're one of the things I woke up to when COVID kicked off is that, I mean, I always knew, that's not even accurate. I didn't always know, but I got, you know, through my own experiences and waking up spiritually, I learned that some of my mission and why I'm here, and then I'm a starseed and blah 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 blah. But then when COVID kicked off, I got more information about myself and who I am and why I'm here. And then I realized, oh, I'm not just here to help humanity. I'm not just a starseed. I'm all of those things and everything that I was shown, but I'm also here for this time, which changed everything for me, because I've had moments in my life where I didn't want to be here, which most starseeds don't. You know, they don't want to be on Earth. It is fucking shit. Yeah. But then when I woke up to that, I was like, oh my God, you know, and it gave me fire in the belly that I wanted to be here. I wanted to partake in this mass awakening of humanity, which is beautiful and devastating at the same time. And one of the things they also said was that people on this level or this language don't understand what these people are saying, because they're at different frequencies. They cannot understand what we are saying because it's a different language. It's a different frequency. They don't understand what the fuck we are saying. So that kind of, that takes me off the, or takes the pressure off me to want to wake people up. It takes the pressure off me and others to of a similar ilk, where we don't need to wake people up. We need to unite with each other and connect. And so many of us, including myself, I mean, I would never have started interviews ever had it not been for COVID. That propelled me forward. It propelled me like nothing else would have. Like I you know, I wouldn't have come out of the spiritual closet and been speaking to the likes of you and the likes of Sasha and Laura, and you know, many of you I consider friends, like I do you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you know, so isn't that wonderful? Like, isn't it beautiful that the negative agenda have propelled us forward and ignited us? Like they've given us our spark and ignition and motivation, and God bless them for doing that, because without that negative agenda, we would still be like, they've propelled us forward. They're helping ascension. If you look at it that way, they are helping ascension. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they had, but that's also a desperate play on their part. They never wanted the internet to be open and free in the way it was. Well, of course, now we're dealing with censorship, but right when it opened up, they realized that this was a can of worms, that you can never put the genie back in the bottle. Even one of the Rockefellers said, we should have never opened up the internet. We should have always kept it under national security. So that has been, turned around and nipped them in their butt, didn't it? But that's what it's got to take. So we invert back. So they invert the good to their bad, to their agenda, but we can invert it back and use it for our own means too. So that gives me hope that we're changing it back. Remember, 15 years ago, the internet was an escape from the real world. Today, the real world is an escape from the internet. We all need to limit our screen time and really get out there and enjoy life, and joie de vivre, the joy of living. Do something that makes you happy. Exercise. That's what makes me happy, and being around friends and people, and just the old, it is. I know I'm a little bit struggling in my town that I just moved into, and I didn't know anybody, but that's changing. I'll get it. And I travel a lot, so it's all good.
You should create some events, Brad, or parties where you invite people around.
I will. As the ranch is ready for prime time, it's not nearly there yet.
But even like maybe in a marquee or some type of structure where you can just invite people, and you know, like a barbecue or something, you know, on a large barbecue.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
Good idea, but I do still need some infrastructure even to do that. But yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. And I'm not too concerned, because it feels like, I'm hanging out with you right now. And I'm going up to Tahoe next week and see some friends who are doing a late birthday thing. So I'm not too far away from people. And everybody I meet here has been really nice. And they're starting to see this eccentric tall guy riding around on his big bike, doing things. But I'm just nice to everybody. So, like the Dalai Lama said, kindness is my religion. He's a bit of a controversial person now with that kiss of the child. I can't see how that's
I know.
anything good. But
And
It just goes to show everybody we thought was good has
it's
some
not.
skeletons in their
Yeah.
closet. Yeah.
And a couple of things I'd like to share if you've got time.
Yeah. Let's go about 5 or 10 more minutes.
Okay, so I'll just share quickly then that I had I've kind of gone down different routes in my life. I've gone down the mediumship route, the spiritualist, the church route. Then I got into shamanism, and then I got into Buddhism, or no, Buddhism and then shamanism. So I was living on Holy Island in Scotland, which is a Buddhist retreat center, for about 2 years, and I was preparing to come and become an Annie, which is a Buddhist nun, and I'd shaved my hair and was about to take vows. And yeah, and I didn't. In the end, I didn't. I went off to Nepal and worked in a sister charity, in a Buddhist charity, which was a sister charity. It was the brother of the monk that owned the Holy Island. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I now have a very different understanding of like all religion, really, all religion, except for Native American shamanism and but I guess you wouldn't really call that a religion, not in the same sense as Catholicism or Buddhism, or which I used to view very differently. I used to view Buddhism very differently, and I know Patricia Corey has kind of got the same views I do now, where the Dalai Lama looks like he was taken over by the CIA, or is a clone, or I mean, to do that, that is pedophilia. And what the fuck?
It is.
You know, and I've met the Dalai Lama, and when I met him, you know, when
You met him.
I did. I met him in London. Because I was married to I was married for a while to a Nepali guy, or Tibetan, sorry, I should say Tibetan, who was very involved, deeply involved in Buddhism. So anyway, I met the Dalai Lama, and when I met him, I always watch people like that are very well known. I'm looking for their aura, and I want to see, are they genuine? Like, are they shining? And he shone when I met him. He shone. So I knew he was genuine, and his presence. So I don't know when he was taken over. But I don't believe, and I could be wrong. But I don't believe he was taken over when I met him. And I forget now when I met him. I think it was around, let me see, it would have been between 2007 and 2009. That in between then, so probably 2008 or something like that. But I don't believe he was taken over then. But I could be wrong. But now I just think, oh my God, like,
yeah.
And I've seen a lot of, there was another divide that created another divide between the spiritual community, with either being for him or against him. And I think it's someone in his position. I think that's horrendous. I think he's absolutely been taken over, and CIA, and it looks like I was wrong. It looks like I was wrong. As I'm talking, I'm realizing that would have been in the 70s that he was probably taken over. And so, yeah, you know, I mean, and you have to be really indoctrinated into Buddhism to believe that that is okay, because that is not okay. No world that I live in is that okay, ever, regardless of it is the Dalai Lama or the Pope, which is a whole other satanic stuff going on there. So that is not okay. Like, these are the people that are running our systems, like the church and religion, and we need to wake up and smell the coffee, because that is not okay.
No, it's not okay. And I think you really saw something very important when you saw the light in him. And I heard that on many people meeting the Dalai Lama. So I bet you're probably right. I think he is been swapped out. Look, we know cloning technology is very real and very advanced, way more than a lot of people understand it, as well as these masks are extremely realistic, and body doubles as well. So there's a lot of different ways that people can be propped up. Just holding it out that maybe he is still a good guy and or has been compromised. Maybe he too has been compromised and blackmailed. Hope not, but you never know. Everything is just so upside down these days. Who the heck can you
Trust.
really trust anymore, right?
Yeah. Ourselves. We can trust
Yeah.
ourselves, you know. And
Right. That's about it.
yeah. It's been a delight talking to you, Brad. Something I would like to share before we go. And I will let you wrap it up by with a last message of what you'd like to share to our viewers. But one thing I would like to mention is that I do have a workshop coming up called the Atlantis Reversal Healing Workshop, which is on the 1st and 2nd of September, I believe. To do with healing our past lives in Atlantis. So that's very, very much aimed at, that's what the workshop is. It's healing our own past lives in Atlantis. And a lot of it will be channeled information and healing and meditations in order to do that, which will be on the 1st and 2nd of September. So if you are interested in that, please send me an email at thepleiadianchild@hotmail.com, or you can message me on my Facebook page is Soma ARah. And what else do I need to say? I think that's about it. Over to you, Brad. Any last words? Like, how do we stay positive? How do we move forward?
Well, everything we've talked about on the show tonight, don't need to bring that up all again. Just stay true to yourself. Try to stay happy too. It's a troubling time that we're going through right now. There's so much injustice we see all around us in the world, and it's easy to fall victim to hating everyone and everything and losing our compassion. So just we're going to get through this. It's going to be a little rough, but let's do the best we can to continue to work with each other and be a different part of people's lives. You know what I mean? And so if people want to find out more about me, you can go to my website, bradolsen.com, and there you'll find my conference schedule, upcoming conferences, and any of my books. Go to ccpublishing.com, and there you can get a signed copy from me and read all my books, and then I'll check out all the other authors that we publish in the CCC Publishing catalog.
And you've also published Laura's book, haven't you? That is beautiful.
We're in the process of publishing it this fall. That's right.
Fantastic.
Yep. It'll be out in spring 2024. So with that said, thanks for having me on. It was great talking to you today. And let's do it again sometime.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brad. It's delightful to talk to you and connect and just like, I love the flow. I love the flow.
Yeah. Me too.
I love you, and take care. And I'll speak to you soon. And well done with doing the ranch.
Oh, thank you so much. And yep, looking forward to it myself.
And I look forward to meeting you in America.
Yeah. Well, you say you're coming, so let's see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on out.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
Bye,
Well,
Brad.
good seeing you again.
See you soon.
Talk
Bye.
again.
Bye.